Welcome to the Jehovih Chronicles with your host, Cosmon Cal.
In every corporeal world, created our vortex first, and by its rotation and by the places in the firmament whither it traveleth, caused I the vortex to conceive the corporeal world. A great vortex created I for the sun, and within this vortex and subject to it, made I the vortices of many of the corporeal worlds.
Think not.
Oh, think not.
Think not.
Oh,
think
man,
not.
that I created the sky, a barren waste,
Think not.
and void of you.
Think not.
Even as man in the corporeal form is adapted to the corporeal earth, so is he in the spiritual form adapted to my ethereal worlds. Three great estates have I bestowed on man: the corporeal, the atmosphere, and the ethereal. Things that man see, created I with a beginning and an end. But the unseen I made of endless duration. The corporeal man made I belong into the scene, but the spiritual man made I as one within the unseen.
Think not.
And everlasting.
Think not.
As the corporeal man
Think not.
beholdeth corporeal things, so doth the spiritual man follow upward the evaporated corporeal entities of things.
Think not.
As corporeal things are tangible to corporeal world.
Jehovah's law rose strong like it always do. Pay attention, y'all, we in the book of Suit. And the trumpet sounded, every shadow withdrew. False crowns cracked, and the prophecy grew. Jehovah's law rose strong like it always do. Pay attention, y'all, we in the book of Suit.
When the crowns fell silent and the kings all died, Jehovah's son came forth with a lamp at his side, illuminating every cycle through a cosmic script. Who walked the path of light when the night got thick? Patterns came back around like a clock reset. A lesson for the ages you ain't seen yet. The covenant endured while the nations wept. Remnants kept the flame while the false one slept. No soul abandoned, no heart left alone. The light freed man from the Game of Thrones. Prophets warned early how the dark would act. False lords fronted hard till the heavens collapsed. But the faithful held steady when the chaos grew. For they were branded by the mark of the Creator's truth. The prophets kept record of the things they'd seen and how the Father's voice had restored the dream. When the trumpet sounded, every shouted, false crowns crack, crack, and the prophecy grew. Jehovah's law rose strong like it always do. Pay attention, y'all, we in the book of Suit. When the trumpet sounded, every shouted, false crowns crack, crack, and the prophecy grew. Jehovah's law rose strong like it always do. Pay attention, y'all, we in the book of Suit. Nations rode high on the serpent's spine, but in time they all fell with their tails entwined. Empires brag heavy on their gold and stone till the cycle spun it back like a replay mode. Sue logged centuries of tears and strife. Rise and decline, yo, the pulse of life. When the prophets got silenced and thrown aside, then the plagues came down and the false lords died. Temples fell quiet and the idols broke. Shadow lifted upward like a rising smoke. He revealed the holy blueprint of Jehovah's design, where no king prevails and no souls confined. He sparked creation's rhythm in the arc of time, reconstructing worlds that the false maligned. He etched that law eternal in the planetary spine, setting newborn cycles in a perfect line. When the trumpet sounded, every sounded, false crowns crack, crack, and the prophecy grew. Jehovah's law rose strong like it always do. Pay attention, y'all, we in the book of Suit. When the trumpet sounded, every shouted out, false crowns crack, crack, and the prophecy grew. Jehovah's law rose strong like it always do. Pay attention, y'all, we in the book of Suit. When the final cycle opened and the veils unrolled, Sue rose speaking truth that the prophets told. He walked through lower heavens where the false grew bold, turning counterfeit crowns back to dust from gold. He traced Jehovah's line where the arcs unfold, correcting every kingdom that the night controlled. He breathed new life where the ages got old and shattered every myth that the serpent sold. He raised the nations upward from the fear they hold, guiding lost generations to the shepherd's fold. He lit the path of dawn with a lamp of gold till the remnant stood firm and reconstructed the code. He weighed the fallen heavens on the scales of old, dividing truth from lies whose eyes could see souls. He tore the veil from heaven where deceit enrolled, revealing every single oath that the secrets hold. When the trumpet sounded, false crowns crack, and the prophecy grew. Jehovah's law rose strong like it always do. Pay attention, y'all, we in the book of Suit. And the trumpet sounded, false crowns crack, and the prophecy grew. Jehovah's law rose strong like it always do. Pay attention, y'all, we in the book of Suit.
Tell lost men boast while the wise ones look. These are from the scriptures of the Lord's third book. We rise from dust where the strong men fell. Reading from the pages where the prophets tell. Lost men boast while the wise ones look. These are from the scriptures of the Lord's third book.
In the ark of Rupta, the heavens wide, the Lord descended through the fiery tide to Guadama's land where the rivers bend, calling his children to rise again. He said, where are the IHUANS, my sacred band? The quiet minds who still understand, not the kings in gold, nor the towers tall, but the humble who measure and build for all. They came from the valleys and mountain veins, from the lands of copper and silver plains, not dressed in jewels nor armored pride, but with clean hands and the truth inside. They built canals where the waters flow, squared the stone where the temples grow. Silent strength, the meek refine, the greatest people the Lord could find.
We rise from dust where the strong men fell, reading from the pages where the prophets tell. Lost men boast while the chosen look. We are in shape the world in the Lord's third book. We rise from dust where the strong men fell, reading from the pages where the prophets tell. Lost men boast while the chosen look. We are in shape the world in the Lord's third book.
The pride grew strong in the IHUANS land. The kings took power with a soldier's hand. Temples rose up of copper and gold, but the hearts of the people were dark and cold. The IHUANS warned of the coming test, but the war drums beat in the east and west. The Lord grew weary, his angels fled, and spirits of darkness ruled instead. Then came the Onguis, fierce and bright, born from the unions of day and night. They hunted and fought by the river's line, carving their laws in flesh and time. They learned the fire from the stones they struck, built their nets and spears by luck. Yet even in war, the plan still stood. The Lord would turn it all to good.
We rise from dust where the strong men fell, reading from the pages where the prophets tell. Lost men boast while the hunters look. The hungry's left a mark in the Lord's third book. We rise from dust where the strong men fell, reading from the pages where the prophets tell. Lost men boast while the hunters look. The hungry's left a mark in the Lord's third book.
A light broke forth where the blood had dried. The IHUANS wisdom met the Onguis' pride. From war and hunger, the new race came. The Gans walked forth in Jehovah's name. They learned to plow and how to chisel the stone, and raised up temples with their hands of their own. No idol or master to chain their view. They labored in rhythm, the world made new. Their prophets spoke of the law within, a balance that cleanses the dust of sin. They taught that work was a prayer in time, and peace was the art of the soul refined. They gathered the nations, the fierce and meek, to build one tongue for the truth to speak. They broke their soul chains in the dark cloud, shook and rose in light, and then united in the Lord's third book.
We rise from dust where the strong men fell, reading from the pages where the prophets tell. Lost men boast while the faithful look. Gans fulfill the word in the Lord's third book. We rise from dust where the strong men fell, reading from the pages where the prophets tell. Lost men boast while the faithful look. Gans fulfill the word in the Lord's third book.
Yeah. So y'all want to say that the brother won? Y'all can say what you want to. Y'all voted the way y'all voted. I ain't hurt.
King Selah Shalom, another victory. Hail me, the king, cause that's what it tend to be. War child got crushed, I took him out his misery. Swing swords cut his vocal cords quite sufficiently. Zion under my feet met his defeat instantly. Trying to compete, run a retreat before you mention me. In the Coliseum, I got eyes on my enemies. In mausoleums, I'ma leave them for coming centuries. Headshot fatal, couldn't recover from his injuries. Bloody gore, ligaments tore, did him vicious, gut him to the core. Give him some more, straight consistent, settle the score. Cause I'm for sure another victor. Cut through Zion like a knife, decapitate, take life. Put his head on the altar for the ultimate sacrifice. For years you've been living lies, following the myth in the sky. Greco-Roman theology through Ethiopian eyes. You just as blind as Christians who thinking Jesus is why. Truth in front your face and you seem they can't get it right. Jah Rastafari, not gonna save your life. Real killers moving silence in the shadow of night. The sleeping giant awoke, you know it's been a while. Coming out of hibernation, hungry, thirsty on the prowl. When the conquering lion growling, echoes about a mile. I'm the real god of war, this nigga just a war child. Sacrifice him to his god, now his soul's immortal. Walking through the valley of death on brimstone tiles. Zion wanted smoke, got suffocated by poison clouds. If you can't take the heat, get the hell out the kitchen now. Standing on my square and I'm here to retain the crown. This debate coliseum, I'm bringing the building down. 2 years ago we told you what new sheriff was in town. Battle of the holy books, bitch, we backed you niggas down.
Woo! Man, it's hot up in this case, man. Yeah, I feel good right now. The atmospheric, green skies, the gang coming. I be in and out, so leave that thing running. Purified is preferred. Higher frequency, a higher burden. I observe on a different nerve. Breaking codes, I am the yoga. Deadly as a Ruger, straight and a shooter. Out the holster with this mudra, inoculation with the wisdom. Creator shape my prism and hit them with those schisms. Perfect. Reason turn the light up. Y'all disappointing like 9 to 5 and some write-ups. Something rearranged, let that boy cook. Organization 33, stay up in them books. Lead them boys shook. 46 divided, yeah, I'm Port Michael. It was only rifle that I came up in this cycle. They say they gangsters, but they telling it. Step outside, take off my shoes and let the sun hit my melon. Had to be learned that the herb be the medicine. It's the same matrix, so who you think you better than? Perfect.
Love, life, balance, all praise to the ever-present creator. It's your hostess with the most, just holding that fire like a roach clip your naga, your nerve, fresh up off of that curve on his born day. Jelly Jam, sir. Hey, Cosmonian, man, you know I celebrate this thing for a whole month. So, man, y'all go ahead and show your boys some love. Hit that cash app if you can't give me a hug. You dig what I'm saying? Salute to the gang, man. Everybody out there, you dig what I'm saying? And thank you for coming through. Obviously, great minds must think alike. Because I turned on my boy channel right before I come on. I see he coming on. He talking about the same topic. But the difference is over here with the gang, you're going to get a little more deeper insight. You dig what I'm saying? About who these people are, what they call themselves, what's going on with them. You dig what I'm talking about? And of course, this is one of my favorite topics, man. If y'all been here for a while, you dig what I'm saying? Y'all know Cosmon got a thing for the giant copper-colored races. You dig what I'm talking about? Found across the world, the great megalithic builder race. You dig what I'm saying? I got an affinity to who Owaspi lets us know are the warrior faithists. Yeah, so I might got a little of this turn up, honestly. You dig what I'm saying? Well, I wanted to get into it. You dig what I'm saying? But before we even did that, I wanted to show you that, one, this is not a mistake, right? Let me pull this up. Let me pull up another one also. Let me pull up this Owaspi. Let me pull up some of this Owaspi, man. Salute to everybody who came through. You dig what I'm saying? Let me, as a matter of fact, let me throw something in the background, man. We can get it, Let's see. Yeah. All right. All right, 1 second, y'all. I got somebody dropping something off at the crib real quick. I'll be right back. So again, I wanted to get into the lesson for today, which is the large or giant copper-colored Indians of America. But the dope part about this is they're not just in America. They are an entire people group. And at one time on the planet were the majority of the people on the planet. This is what a lot of people are not understanding. But if you are, into following megafauna and things like that, you dig what I'm saying? It's not a far stretch to when one is asserting that if there's more oxygen in the planet, hence more pressure on the planet, you dig what I'm talking about? There's a denser oxidation on the planet. The animals are bigger. The reptiles are bigger. The serpents, they bigger. The bugs are bigger. And the plants, along with the fish, are all in a mega form or a very large form of themselves. So the logical question that I would ask is, why wouldn't the man also be large also? I want to show y'all something. Cause see, they think, a lot of people think giants are this magical, mystical people. You dig what I'm saying? And what I'm here to, and OSB is here to reveal to you, are not only are they regular men, you dig what I'm talking about, but there is a reason that is objective and, in a sense, natural, as into why they are so large. You dig what I'm talking about? And why nations of these people come out like this. You dig what I'm talking about? Let's see. Okay. All right. I want to show y'all this. Let me blow this up. I'm going to go into 2 spots. Okay. And that there is a physical and atmospheric reason for as into why these people or certain people or any person becomes large, right? It's in the genetics, but it's a reason why, right? And you got to remember, if a lot of these giants or these very large men are coming out of average or below average height women and men, what is making the difference in the genetics, right, that pushes the offspring to a very large and physical state, but also a very large spiritual state, right? Science understands this as hybrid vigor, a offspring that is, for all and intensive purposes, better than both of its progenitors, right? This happens in all nature, but and I know a lot of people probably say, oh, well, that kind of hints towards evolution. No, it debunks evolution, because the only way you can get true hybrid vigor is within the species. So nothing becomes something else by mixing with something else. That, even if it can admix, which means it's only in the same genus, the resulting offspring is always sterile, right? So for a large human to be produced, right, or a giant human to be produced, I'm talking about none of that the genetic deformity, and I'm talking about a large symmetrical all way put together human. You dig what I'm talking about? Just 8 feet tall, 7.5 feet tall. You dig what I'm saying? With no abnormality. 9 feet tall, 10 feet tall. And them be some of the small ones. Right? Let me show y'all something. Right? These people were everywhere. Right? But it begs to ask the question, where is the bones too? Huh? Now, many of us have done a lot of studying in the last 10 years, and then we always get to a dead end road when it comes to these bones of these very large people. Then everybody, and even OWASP is saying, is there and still should be there to some extent. Well, what we found is that many of these bones have been found, but we get to that great dead end, the great dead end of all time, called the Smithsonian. It seems as if every time a great find is found, we end up, we see that the Smithsonian is alerted. Somehow they show up and stuff just disappears. And then the area where it's around, it magically becomes a UNESCO area. But let's get into these giant copper colored people. And not only were they in America, but they are around the world, right? But so fair was the land of Japhet, right? This is in Asia. Japhet is Asia and Russia. With its wisdom and great learning, was reduced to a distracted and broken up country. Listen, the bones of the mortals were scattered over the lands in every direction, nor could the land be tilled. The same thing should be going on in the Americas. We see the same general type. Just that would be like a racial classification. Like I'm saying, a negroidal type today. I know the word is ancient and outdated, but you dig what I'm saying? A negroidal type, right? But they're large and they're copper colored. These copper colored people, right? Because not everybody who's dark skinned is the same type of person. So we just talking about the ones who are the same. But look, it's saying the bones of the mortals were scattered over the lands in every direction, nor could the land be tilled without digging among the skulls and bones of the great giant race of who? IHUANS, that once peopled it. Let's go down to the glossary, WASP glossary, and see what a ion is, right? Let's go see what a ion is, right? And who they are. Here we go. Who are the IHUANS? This is the large copper colored people we talking about. Remember these IHUANS, right? They are the half breed between the people who get it, the peaceful people, and the warrior people. Many of these warrior people were already big. What they don't understand is many ions were big. They generally were small. But iron ain't got nothing to do with race, more about what you do. But the IHUAN, who is a half-breed between the people who get it, the ions, mound builder, and the druks, the warrior groups, people who don't get it, or the spiritual man and the non-spiritual man, the peaceful man and the warrior man, the IHUAN is the half-breed between them. Who are they? They are the copper-colored race. Huh? Not just in Asia, not just in Africa, not just in Europe, not just in India, but America also. And that's what we're going to go show you real quick. But there's another reason why OWASP is dope. Because it show you why. This the dope part, right? OWASP give you a reason as into why the people turn big at certain times. And y'all want to see some stuff? Watch these babies. Watch, they're going to progressively get larger to about 2031. Watch this. And I'm telling you, for the next, watch the babies born in between 2031 and 2048. Them niggas going to be large. First of all, watch these babies that's being born from 25 to 31. Not only is they going to get the mix, they going to be big and smart. And spiritually, they gonna get the mix. But these next niggas, they gonna be dumb big. Watch how big these babies be. I'm talking about even the girls gonna be 6 feet. Every one of them. You watch. You watch your baby. Because we in, what people don't know is we in Anja right now. And have been since 2025, right? Watch what happens when you're in these dark atmospheric densities. Watch what happens to the people, right? Let me blow this up. Let me blow it up a little bit more just so I can see if I can fit it in there one more time. Watch this. This is from the Book of Divinity. Chapter 14. Let's start at 1. Watch this. Remember, we in Aja. We started up. We've been in atmospheric density for the last 11 years, or we're going to be for the next 11 years, starting in 2019, 2020. Right. So basically, 2020. From 2020, we started into a new density, but that density we thought was at first was Aja. Just totally Aja. It wasn't Aja. It was Jaya. It was J.I. And for 5.5 years, right? And this is why it dropped the disease and the pandemic, epidemic, all that stuff. This is why it came then. Because it wasn't Ajah. It wasn't Ajah. It was J.I. Not just the semi-dark, but it was the semi-light. But now it transitioned to Ajah for the next 5.5 years. That is an ode or a sun cycle, right? 1/3 of 33. And this is how you tell time, right? So from 2020 to 2031 is an ode, right? But it also, once you really know the count, you dig what I'm talking about, that generation from 81 to 2014, that 33 years, you dig what I'm saying, or the fifth generation after the era of Cosmos started, 165 years, or 2014. You dig what I'm talking about? That next 5 or that next 11 years really stops in 2025. Right? Do the math. 33 5 times, add it from 148, you're gonna get 2014. Right? Anyways, right? The next 11 years go from 2014 to 2025, and then from 2025 to 2036, and from 2036 to 2047. That's 33 years. That's the 6th generation, right? Now watch what it says. Now that's the end. That's the beginning of a semi-dan, or the 200-year harvest season. Now watch what it says happens around the times of Dan, right? If it's in Ajah, right? Mind you, we gonna be in Ajah till 2036, right? But remember, we going from 2014 to 5.5 years later. It's 2019, 2020. You dig what I'm saying? And from that time, you dig what I'm talking about? You add another 5.5 years, that's 2025. You go another 5.5 years, and from that, and you see how the time is start. But once you add the moon count, it adds that 11 into the 33 cycle, right? So it allows you to pick up that 231, that 2020. You dig what I'm talking about? It allows you to pick those dates up in the rise and fall of arc cycles, right? And in 2031, what happens is, right now we are still below 350 nanometers of light, visible light, and we can only perceive really between 350 and 700. Right? That's all visible light, right? But right now, man's visual acuity is lower, right? This is why the light that is dumping onto the planet is lower than man's ability to see it, right? So it allows him at certain times to pick up low demonic entities that are in the TV, radio wave spectrum below 350 nanometers. This is why you can sometimes see ghosts and manifestations can happen and all that stuff. But when the natural light that is bombarding the planet rises above that 350 nanometer stuff, you start to see things above it. Man. So, and then Owaspi say, ain't that Ethereum light that starts in 2031 and will be, it gets ugly or it gets beautiful. is what it actually get. So listen to what he say. Remember, we in Ajah right now. It don't start to break till 2031. We've been in 11 years of Ajah and Jayah. Jayah then Ajah, back to back. That's been your whole 2020s. That's going to be your whole 2020s till 2031. Right? But watch what happens when you in Ajah and you get around a Dan. Watch this. When Ajah comes, or the dark atmosphere, the heavier atmospheric pressure, right? When Ajah comes near a dawn of Dan, right? Let my Lewises, my angelic geneticists, be swift in duty, far seeing in the races of men, right? I not only break up the old foundations of temples and cities in those days, but foundations of the abuse of the caste of men. My voice is upon the races of men. Today I say, preserve the caste of men, marry thus and so, everyone to their own line. For I preserve it it is wisdom, right? But he says, tomorrow, I say, I will have no caste, for the races are becoming impoverished in blood. Marry here and marry there. And what I get, remember we in 5.5 years of this, and I give them Ajah, right? You've been seeing a lot of how this looks when it plays out in society is that it looks extra sexual. Has things been hypersexual? Has the music, has the visuals? What about Epstein? What about the culture? Has it been extra sensual, sexual? I would say so. And this is how it plays out, right? But by these times of Dan, right, I give them Ajah, and what? Their desires break and all bounds, right? So that means they start having even more sex, producing even more babies, right? Sound something like today? Okay, but what happens is if you're born around the time of a Dan, right? And Ajah, that dense, heavy pressure, right, is condensing on the planet. It condenses what's in the womb. If the atmosphere is a womb of the planet, well then the vortex of the planet or the human is its atmosphere. And because more density is put on the creation as a whole, it happens also and affects even the womb. So what happens when you put more pressure on an object, right? More things are condensed and it produces more energetic force, many times as heat, but many times as electricity and magnetism, right? But it also condenses corporeal material, allowing more genetics to be code to actually be smashed into a corporeal self or upon conception. And what happens? Because it condenses, everything is more condensed around the time of a day. If things are more, certain conditions have to be have to exist to produce certain other conditions, right? The condition to producing a very large person is being born around a time of Dan where there is great Aja, or what is called semi-darkness on the planet. We're in it now. Huh? It's a time of war. Bankruptcy, assassinations, conquer, political chicanery. That's how you prove we in Aja. It's also a system upheaval. I will have no caste, for the races of men are becoming impoverished in blood. Right? Marry here. So I tell them marry here and marry there. And I give them what? Aja. And their desires break all bounds. Right? This is what helps them marry here, marry there. And I raise them up giants. And strong limbed. So we're not talking, so we understand that we're not talking about giants spiritually or giants mentally or moral giants. No, he's talking about physical giants. And this is how you do them. This is how you make them. Right? So, I want to get into this live about Tuscaloosa, right? We're going to get to cooking, man. Hit them vortexes in the chat, man. We're going to get to cooking real quick. Share this live on Tuscaloosa real fast. You dig what I'm saying? Let's go. And these are the IHUANS, the copper color races of America. Some of them took on the name Alabamu. We know about Mu. Right? Al-Ba, the spirit, the great, all, Ba. Y'all better, hey, listen, man, leave Cosmon alone. Let's go.
Four independent Spanish sources documented the same man in October 1540, and all of them described something they'd never seen before. A Native American chief so tall that the Spanish chroniclers, who had traveled across the Caribbean and Central America encountering native peoples everywhere they went, felt compelled to call him a giant, so large and heavy that no normal horse could carry him. So physically imposing that Hernando de Soto's expedition recorded his dimensions in detail because his size exceeded anything in their experience of human norms. Chief Tuscaloosa, October 10th, 1540.
I just built a budgeting app.
What? How?
Base 44. Look, it pulls our expenses.
Attahachie in what's now central Alabama.
I want y'all to notice the date. He said 1540. Right? 1540. Notice he also ain't saying this man is limping, lame. He don't got no pituitary gland problems. And then watch, it's not just one. Him son big in the mug too. Right? And guess what Tuscaloosa's son is named? Anybody want to guess? Anybody know what Tuscaloosa's son is? Who they about to tell you is a giant too? Right? And I'm telling you, they underselling these people. They underselling these people. Because when you get on a pack, if you seen a pack horse, I'm a 6 foot man. If I get on a pack horse, my feet ain't even dropping below his breast. I'm gonna be able to full stand up on him, and my feet ain't gonna even drop below his breast. Watch where they say this man sit on a pack horse. A pack horse taller than a man. They big, they real. Yeah, you ever seen them Budweiser horses? Them big old giant old Goliath. That's what they say he on. That's a pack horse. What? Hold on, let me show you these big old giants. Hold on. Watch this. They got a name I can't remember. Hold on. Let me catch this thing up real quick. Look, hold on. I want to show you these big old things. Right? Look. That's a pack horse. They're called Shire joints. Look at this thing. Hold on. Let me show this thing. I want to show you how big they is compared to a man. Can y'all see that? That's a man standing behind a pack horse. I want to, yeah, and Clydesdales. Yep, another one is Clydesdales. Right? That's about a roughly 6 foot man. He roughly about my type, my height, 5'10" maybe. You dig what I'm talking about? I want you to notice the size of a pack horse. So when they tell you the dimensions of this man, right? You can tell he way bigger than 7 feet tall. Add a foot on this man, right? He about 7 feet tall. You could put a foot on him, and his feet ain't gonna go past that horse's belly. As a 7-footer. Watch where they say this man's feet is. They say his feet almost touch the ground. What? That would mean your legs alone is about 6'5". Look how tall that horse's back is. So the middle of you would be a 6'5" man. He's way bigger than 7 foot. Watch this. I'ma just let dog cook. I'ma let him go ahead. These the copper-colored Aboriginal people of America, though. Don't let them fool you.
And we have the physical descriptions from multiple sources. Full of dignity, they wrote, tall of person, muscular, lean, and symmetrical, feared by both his vassals and neighboring nations, and so exceptionally tall that when they tried to estimate his height against their own soldiers, they came up with a measurement that places him at nearly 7 feet tall. The gentleman of Elvas wrote the first published account in 1557. They came up with a measurement that...
Look how the Spanish chronicle him, and that's a nigga. I don't care what you say. Right? Mind you, wasn't no Mongoloids east of the Mississippi. Never. Remember we talking about we in Alabama. Right? I think this is a proper depiction of what he looked like compared to the Spanish. They came to about his, look, the tallest of them came to about midway, to about his penile area. Look, I think that is a proper description. I think they drew what they seen. And that don't look like no sickly old dude to me. He looked like what his name say, Tuscaloosa, giant copper color or black warrior. That's what Tuscaloosa means. Giant black warrior. Woo!
Places him at nearly 7 feet tall. The Gentleman of Elvas wrote the first published account in 1557, describing Tuscaloosa as exceptionally tall and physically imposing. Rodrigo Rangel, De Soto's personal secretary, described him as so tall he seemed a giant.
Now, for those who've been around a minute, y'all seen we went into, like I told you, Cosmon been on this. We went into the diary of Arnaldo Ranjal, and he also says a very curious thing, that when they first met, because see, before they met Tuscaloosa, they were met by the son of Tuscaloosa, right? Who brought them to him, right? But when he says this, a very interesting thing. Now, mind you, this is purportedly 1540, right? 48 years prior, Columbus had just came here, 1492, supposedly, right? And so this is 48 years later, and they just get into Alabama for the very first time, right? But Ranjal says a very curious thing about when they meet Tuscaloosa, that when they met the son of Tuscaloosa, right? Anybody know his name? Drop his name in the chat, right? If y'all know the son of Tuscaloosa, what his name is. Tuscaloosa means giant black warrior, right? What is his son's name? Ranjal says when they met this nigga who was a giant too, you gonna see, he was a giant too, that when he opened his mouth to speak to them, he spoke a broken Spanish, a broken form of Latin that they could understand. How in the heck is he speak? Is an Alabama Indian already speaking Latin? And this is supposed to be the first time that they even meet in Spanish people. I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying. Y'all gotta let that sit on yourself. This is Ranjal right here. He said when he met the son of Tuscaloosa, the nigga opened up his mouth and spoke Latin to him as an Alabama Indian. So they could, right? He had his own language, right? But, so he could interact with De Soto and them. You dig what I'm saying? He spoke Latin. Let that sink in.
Luis Hernandez de Biedma, the expedition's financial officer, confirmed the unusual height, and Garcilaso de la Vega, writing in 1605 from eyewitness interviews, provided the most specific detail that lets us calculate actual measurements. 1.5 feet taller than the Spaniards. Let me be clear about what that means. Average Spanish male height in the 16th century was roughly 5 feet 4 inches to 5 feet 6 inches. 1.5 feet taller puts Tuscaloosa at 6 feet 10 inches to 7 feet tall. And this isn't one source making an exaggerated claim. This is 4 independent observers writing at different times, all confirming that Tuscaloosa's height was extraordinary. But the documentation goes further than just observational descriptions, because the Spanish didn't just observe his height from a distance. They tried to transport him as a hostage, and that's where the physical evidence becomes impossible to dismiss through measurement error or exaggeration. When De Soto decided to take Tuscaloosa hostage, which was standard procedure for controlling native leaders during the expedition, the protocol was to mount important captives on horses for easier control and transport. De Soto ordered his men to bring a horse for the chief, and they brought their largest war horse. Tuscaloosa couldn't ride it, not because he didn't know how to ride, but because he was too large and too heavy for the animal to bear his weight. The chronicles describe what happened next in detail. They brought a pack horse which were bred and trained to carry heavy loads and built more solidly than riding horses meant for warfare or travel. Tuscaloosa mounted the pack horse, and even then his feet nearly touched the ground while he was seated in the saddle. Think about what that means physically when you consider.
Yup. Let's think about what that means physically. Right? Let's think about what that means physically. That's a pack horse. Uh-oh, sis. Uh-oh. You might be on to something here. Listen what the sis said. So they lied that they bred us to make us large during slavery. They bred us to make us smaller. Ooh-wee. I ain't gonna say that's actually what happened for sure. But boy, that got a ring of truth to it. We know you come from these genetics. Huh? We talking about Alabama Indians. These ain't the Mongoloids. These is the Negroes. These the people who got stayed and got reclassified as colored blacks and Negroes. Yeah. Bruh, 9 to 8.5. These is the little ones. These the little ones. These the little ones. Tuscaloosa would have been close to 8 feet, and he the little homie. It was ones way bigger than him. Way bigger, double this size, double this 8.5 feet, 17, 18 here in America. I ain't even gotta go nowhere, and they done found the bones. They always get documented, and then you know what happened, right? They said when this man got on a pack horse, his feet almost touched the ground. How tall you got to be for your feet to touch the ground? You got to be close to 8 feet, if not 8.5. Easy. Huh? Watch this. Let's keep cooking. I'm gonna go back just a little tid, a little tiggle baggle, a little tiggle swiggle. And I'm gonna start it right here. Let's go. I ain't seen nobody put it in the chat yet. So since they talking about him, right? The son of Tuscaloosa is named Black Panther. Huh? Oh, the sound? Oh, the sound? Hold on. I might got to reshare it then. Hold on. Let me stop. I might got to reshare it. Hold on. Might got to reshare it. Okay. There we go. We back on it. We back on it. One more time. One more again. You right? We'll back it up again. And since we hold on, I'm gonna back it up. They say they couldn't hear it. Right? They said they couldn't hear it. So we're gonna back it up 1 second. 1 minute. And yeah, I'm gonna share the video again because I got you, bro. And they gonna describe him, but I didn't see nobody put Tuscaloosa son name in the chat. Guess what his name is? Tuscaloosa son name is Black Panther. Yeah, Black Panther is from America. Guess what? So is Wakanda. You lying, Cosmo. Hold on. Huh? Where's Wakanda? It's in Illinois. Right? Huh? Wakanda is anciently a Aboriginal site or spring, right? Where the water was so saturated with certain minerals that it would help the people and heal them. You dig what I'm talking about? They then turned it into a hot spring today. You dig what I'm talking about? And there's also a Wakanda, Washington. There's also a Wakanda, if I'm not mistaken, in Missouri. Huh? There's 2 places in America named Wakanda. One in Illinois, one in Washington. There's also Wakanda Springs. Watch this. Watch this. Wakanda Springs was a sacred. Didn't I tell you? There's more than one. Wakanda or Wakantanka is the name or the Siouan or Carib way of saying the name of the Great Spirit. Wakantanka, right? Or Wakanda. Wakanda is kind of like the power that Wakantanka would use. So Wakanda would be like the spirit. Wakantanka would be the creator, the great spirit, right? So Wakanda is the force that Wakantanka uses, right? So Wakanda Springs is a sacred, mineral-rich, cone-shaped artisan spring in north-central Kansas, right? So there's a Wakanda, Kansas, a Wakanda, Illinois, and a Wakanda, Washington. All of these places are known for springs, having springs in them. You dig what I'm talking about? My city up here where I was raised at, you dig what I'm talking about, is known, is called Bath City, right? Because it had hot springs. You dig what I'm talking about? And would have, in a sense, been a Wakanda. Right? But let's get back to this real quick.
To bear his weight. The chronicles describe what happened next in detail. They brought a pack horse which was bred and trained to carry heavy loads and built more solidly than riding horses meant for warfare or travel. Tuscaloosa mounted the pack horse, and even then his feet nearly touched the ground while he was seated in the saddle. Think about what that means physically when you consider horse dimensions. A standard horse stands 14.
I gotta show it again. I gotta show it again, man. Because this thing is huge. I gotta show. Listen, man. Even a 7-foot man. Listen to me now. Even a 7-foot Negro riding on this horse, his feet would come right about here. No. This horse is massive. He over 7 feet. Right? Well over 6'3" at the withers. Right? This is a big pack horse. This is that Clydesdale type stuff. This is what they went and got. And his feet was way down here. A 7-foot man foot would be up here. He could ride it, no problem. This wouldn't even be a problem. His legs would be up here because his feet would be out. Just sitting on the back of this horse. Just Wembenyama. I'm talking about Wembenyama. 7'6". His feet would still be way up here. Right? Just if it's cresting the body. Because remember, he got to wrap his legs around the body of this thing. That's easy 4 feet, 5 feet wide. He big. Right? He big. You got to wrap your legs around cuz he pulled trees. That's what he made to do. Right? So, for you're way bigger than Wembenyama, who is 7'6", if your feet is almost on the ground. Not that it's hanging low. Your feet on the ground. You'll have to put another foot on Wembenyama at least. And they watch this, man. I ain't gonna keep stopping. I keep stopping. My bad, y'all. I'm gonna keep going. Man, but this is why I like this stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy. You dig what I'm talking about?
His feet nearly touched the ground while he was seated in the saddle. Think about what that means physically when you consider horse dimensions. A standard horse stands 14 to 17 hands high, which translates to roughly 4 feet 8 inches to 5 feet 8 inches at the shoulder. For a mounted rider's feet to nearly touch the ground, even on a shorter pack horse, requires extraordinary leg length that simply doesn't work mathematically for someone under 7 feet tall. The proportions only make sense if Tuscaloosa was actually as tall as the Spanish claimed. And here's what makes this even more significant from a genetic standpoint. The chronicles mention Tuscaloosa's son, who was described as equally tall as his father, but more slender in build. This wasn't a single anomalous individual whose height could be dismissed as random genetic variation. This was a family trait, a bloodline characteristic where exceptional height passed from father to son, which suggests something hereditary and consistent rather than coincidental. It indicates that this particular lineage carried traits that produced 7-foot individuals across generations. This isn't mythology that we're dealing with here. This isn't legend passed down through oral tradition with details exaggerated over centuries of retelling. This is documentation, by multiple trained observers, men who served as secretaries and financial officers and chroniclers, who recorded what they saw within months or years of the actual encounter. And what they saw was a man whose physical dimensions exceeded their experience of human norms by such a margin that they felt compelled to document it in detail, to note that he seemed like a giant, to record that special accommodations had to be made because normal equipment couldn't handle his size. But here's what makes Tuscaloosa different from the giants I've documented in other videos. Tuscaloosa wasn't found in a burial mound by archaeologists in the 1800s. He wasn't a skeleton measured and then collected by the Smithsonian. He was alive. He was a political leader. He commanded territory. He organized military resistance. And the Spanish, who had no reason to exaggerate the capabilities of an enemy who nearly destroyed them, documented all of it. The encounter began at Atahachi, Tuscaloosa's capital, on October 10th, 1540. The Spanish entered the village expecting the usual intimidation tactics to work. They'd perfected a routine across their explorations: ride into a native settlement, make displays of force, cavalry charges, lance demonstrations show the technological superiority of horses and steel weapons, demand submission, take hostages, extract supplies and porters, move on. It had worked across much of the southeast. Local chiefs, awed or frightened by Spanish military capability, generally complied. Some resisted, but organized military opposition had been rare and
Dodge the hijack. This type of Indian never lived east of the Mississippi, especially not in the land of Alabama. Right? As a matter of fact, I hate to bust your bubble, but this guy that we're looking at is not even a quote unquote Native American. He's actually Italian. Huh? Okay.
Unsuccessful. Tuscaloosa was different. The chronicles describe the scene in detail. He waited for the Spanish on a high balcony atop a platform mound, seated on cushions, wearing a feathered mantle that reached to his feet, a headdress in Moorish style, surrounded by his principal men.
Y'all hear that? He said it was in Moorish style. Huh? What Moors? Ain't supposed to be no Moors in America in 1540. When they got there. It's only been a couple trips. Pizarro, DeSoto, Vespucci, and Colombo. When did the Moors come? Or did we go there and now they just came back? And what they seen over there, because remember, they don't have no reference for seeing anything like this except what they seen in Europe. Well, that doesn't mean that these people over here are Moors if the Moors are dressed like these people. So just as easily or readily could be said that the headdress came from America and went to Europe, right? Moor means melanated European. Also a tie-in with the Converso Moriscos, who become your Protestants, your Pilgrims, you dig what I'm talking about? People like that. You dig what I'm saying? They come out of these Moriscos and Converso Jews, like the Huguenots. You dig what I'm saying? Don't let dodge the hijack. Don't let them, just because they say it look Moorish. Well, how is the Moors here in 1540, and how is this tall giant nigga in America supposedly a Moor, and we know he an American Indian? Sound more like he who descends from a long line of American Indians had this headdress on long before a quote unquote Moor adopted the style. Huh? Let's not act like American culture ain't the most copied in the world today. So why wouldn't it have been the most copied then when they came across it? Huh? Didn't they take every bit of food crop somewhere else that we had plentiful here in America? We affected the world. We was the breadbasket of the world. That's what I'm saying. When did the Moors come? Did they all come with Columbus? Did they all come with De Soto? Did they come with Pizarro? When did they all come? And when did they culturally give their style to American Indians in 40 years? I smell some BS in the mix. Something in the milk ain't pure, y'all. These people was already here.
A headdress in Moorish style, surrounded by his principal men. And when the Spanish cavalry performed their intimidation display, galloping horses around the plaza, jousting toward him with raised lances, Tuscaloosa didn't flinch, didn't show fear, didn't react. The Spanish noted this, noted his complete composure, noted that he seemed accustomed to authority, accustomed to respect, and not at all impressed by their display. When De Soto demanded porters and women as tribute, Tuscaloosa engaged diplomatically at first, listened, considered, and then refused.
It doesn't matter who you are. Having rational, biological...
He told De Soto, according to Biedma's account, that he was not accustomed to serving anyone. He was a paramount chief, he ruled territory, he commanded vassals, and he would not submit to Spanish authority.
Check! Is he listening to him? Yeah, all right, I hear you, cuz. I hear. Nah, I ain't even accustomed to even doing none of that, pimp.
De Soto took him hostage, and Tuscaloosa, understanding he couldn't resist immediately, suggested the Spanish travel to Mobila, a fortified town within his territory, where supplies and porters would be provided. De Soto, confident in his military superiority and eager for the promised resources, agreed. The Spanish had no idea they were being led into a trap. 8 days passed while Tuscaloosa traveled with the Spanish expedition as their hostage, 8 days during which he maintained absolute composure, engaged politely with his captors, and gave no indication that anything unusual was being planned. 8 days during which...
Do y'all like these type of builds? You dig what I'm saying? You know, I know it'd be what I like, and I think it's interesting. You dig what I'm saying? Being able to tie this back into the Aboriginal history of America. You dig what I'm saying? But do y'all like these type of builds, man? If this is cool, man, and y'all digging this type of stuff or would like to see more builds and all stuff like this, man, hit me with some fire emojis in the chat. Let me know I'm cooking, man. You dig what I'm saying? Hit me with some fire emojis, man. Let me know I'm cooking, man. See, cause you know I got tons of this stuff. I got tons of stuff I don't show because I think it's I don't be sure y'all even like it. You dig what I'm saying? But I always want to, you know, keep the people enlightened and, you know, let them know that their history is so vast, right? We ain't got to go nowhere. We don't got to lean on nobody. We don't got to usurp no people's history. We don't got to do none of that. We got the most vast history, but also the most hidden, right? Shout out to all the brothers who get down on to the Pan American, I said Pan American, Aboriginal American indigenous history. You dig what I'm talking about? And shout out to that, but you dig what I'm talking about? What about the most important part? What about the spirituality? What about the culture? What about the heritage? What about the ethnicity? Right? That's what our people need. That's the things that can't come in a DNA test. Right? And that's cool and all that y'all can show a little bit of but what's the name of it? What's the name of it? What's the name of the spirituality? Huh? Show me a direct, you dig what I'm talking about, cultural practice that, you know what I mean, the mass amounts of the people use today in America. Especially the indigenous ones. You know what I'm saying? They didn't took our culture and it didn't went worldwide. Right? So many people are usurping it. You would think it's somebody else's, that it come from somewhere else. And it'd be from right here in America. One of those cultural practices is called the peace pipe. Uh-oh. Y'all chief on that bud? Y'all smoke that Reaper Treba? Huh? Y'all pop a little CBDs every now and then, huh? Little CBNs? Yeah, you've been doing that for 72,000 years or plus here in America. For sure, the last 10,000, 12,000. The great law of ego quim, you dig what I'm talking about? We pass the peace pipe around when we talk, right? To cool the warrior's mind, right? And this is why we used to let our women speak during negotiations. You dig what I'm talking about? Because how we, if we warn, right, and my blood is, and my sword is full of blood, right? My sword full of blood, right? Your sword full of blood. We not about to sit down here and mediate. And this is why our societies was matriarchal, because while we on the floor, on the floor, on the battlefield, you dig what I'm talking about? There were matriarchs behind with letting the cooler heads prevail. Hey, it just is what it is. You dig what I'm talking about? Somebody got to negotiate peace. You dig what I'm talking about? And them herbs, that tobacco, them herbs is part of Aboriginal Indigenous American culture since its inception. Huh? It's called the Copan. Huh? And it come with 8 laws of Algonquin. And this is why they always trying to confuse you as a lost tribe or Israelite or something. No. You had 8 laws that made you some of the realest niggas in the world. Huh? You did you know one of the American indigenous laws, right, is to be a real nigga? Yeah. To stand on your word, right, even until death. To never be false. Huh? To be real, 100, even to your death. Don't never let nothing change or make the whole idea of your word being your bond. Yeah. More American indigenous culture. Yeah. See, there's so many people say it, and it's so ancient, right? And been culturally appropriated through different people groups that it's assumed, right? And even postulated by science and, archaeology and whatnot, that these other people made, they made, the culture or the idea or the plan themselves just because they came in contact with it and put it into their own cultural systems, right? Just like the Chiba, they always try to tell you that come from India, right? It don't. The Sadhu took it there, right? After coming into contact with Americans. You dig what I'm saying? It just is what it is. You dig what I'm saying? A lot of people try to say the dreadlock come from the Sadhu or the indigenous East Indian to the indigenous West Indian. You dig what I'm saying? I could easily turn that around, right? And say the influence is the other way. Because we don't see them locked up until after colonization. We don't see the Indians with the locks, even though they Sadhu, right? We don't see them with the locks till after colonization, right? Prior to that, we don't see them with the locks. After coming into colonization, dealing with Europeans, being brought to the Americas, becoming the coolie class, you dig what I'm saying? Dealing with Spanish, dealing with Portuguese, becoming the coolie class, you dig what I'm talking about? They that culture is, you know, infused into them people through being shipped into the Caribbean American Caribbean, right? And then it spreads back, right? We don't see the Sadhu with the Nazi dread them. You dig what I'm talking about? Till colonization. And even the ones we see before that was heavily melanated and Negroidal, not like what we call the modern East Indian. That's a thing we got to learn too, that a lot of them people groups was genocided on purpose. You dig what I'm talking about? They got killed off on purpose. The East Indian, Dutch East Indian Company, they was wiping out whole waterway systems and poisoning water systems and was wiping out millions of people. Because, you know, a lot of them stayed on the edges of deserts and all that stuff. And once you either dam the water up, stop it, or poison it, man, you kill millions. They killed, I think it was like 70 million people in less, you know what I mean? In less than a decade or something like that. It was crazy. It's crazy. You know what I mean? So, you know, that history is nuts. We got to get into the Dutch East Indian history, what they did to them people over there. And then, mind you, the original Sadhu or untouchables or quote unquote lowest caste in India, the Aboriginal, who they try to say is African, tells you he's Indian. But he sure looked like a nigga though. Right? He sure Negroidal. He ain't the modern Punjabi type East Indian that we see today. So we know that there was great migration and replacement. Right? But we ain't gonna dip all across the world. Let's get back to America and these large copper-colored people. Your ancestors, the IHUANS.
Word spread ahead of the expedition through whatever communication networks existed among the towns in his territory, and preparations were made at Mabila for what was coming. October 18th, 1540, the Spanish arrived at Mabila, and the chronicles describe in detail what they observed as they approached. A fortified town with wooden palisade walls and archer bastions positioned at intervals along the defences. All vegetation had been cleared for a crossbow shot's distance outside the walls, eliminating cover for anyone approaching. And inside the palisade, the population distribution was wrong in ways that should have been obvious. Almost entirely young warriors, with no children visible, no elderly, none of the normal age distribution you'd expect in a functioning town with families. The Spanish noticed these anomalies, and some officers expressed concern about entering, but De Soto was supremely confident in his military capability and focused on extracting the supplies and porters that Tuscaloosa had promised. He ordered the expedition into the town despite the warning signs that something wasn't right about what they were seeing. The palisade had been recently strengthened. The gates were designed to restrict entrance and exit, and hidden throughout the town, concealed in houses and structures, were warriors, more than 2,500 warriors. Some estimates from the chronicles suggest as many as 5,000 to 6,000, though modern historians consider the lower numbers more reliable.
Enjoy more ways to save at Kroger, like low prices in every aisle. And you can clip and save more with...
Tuscaloosa entered Mobile ahead of the main Spanish force. He walked into a building. And he didn't come out. The trap was sprung. Warriors emerged from concealment. The gates closed, and what followed was one of the bloodiest battles in North American history. The Battle of Mobile lasted 8 to 9 hours of continuous fighting. The Spanish, caught inside the fortified town when the trap was sprung, fought desperately with every advantage their technology provided. They had steel armor that native weapons struggled to penetrate, steel swords and weapons that could cut through wooden shields, some firearms though ammunition was limited, and eventually their cavalry managed to break through the palisade from outside where they'd been when the fighting started. But the native warriors had numbers measured in thousands. They knew every inch of the terrain they were defending, and they fought with the desperation of people defending their homeland against invaders who'd already proven themselves brutal and unstoppable everywhere else they'd gone. The casualty numbers that the Spanish recorded are staggering when you put them in historical context. The chronicles report Native American deaths ranging from 2,500 to as many as 6,000, including women and children who were present in the town when the battle began. The Spanish themselves lost about 20 killed and 250 wounded, which doesn't sound catastrophic until you realize they also lost 45 horses and all their supplies, baggage, and equipment that they'd been carrying since they landed in Florida. To put those numbers in perspective, the Battle of Antietam, the single bloodiest day of the American Civil War, resulted in roughly 3,650 deaths. Mobile potentially exceeded that. On one day, in 1540, using pre-gunpowder weapons primarily, the Spanish technically won. They held the field at the end, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. The loss of supplies, horses, and equipment combined with the casualties effectively broke the back of De Soto's expedition. They would continue limping through the southeast for 2 more years, but they never recovered from Mobile. And De Soto himself died less than 2 years later, his expedition a failure. And Tuscaloosa, his body was never found. The Spanish searched, they counted bodies, documented casualties, tried to identify leaders. But Tuscaloosa, the 7-foot chief who had orchestrated the ambush, who had walked into that building and never emerged, was not among the dead they could identify. Some historians suggest he died in the fire that consumed much of Mobile during the battle. Others suggest he escaped. The chronicles don't provide a definitive answer. What they do provide is documentation of a man who stood 7 feet tall, who commanded sufficient authority to organize a military resistance involving thousands of warriors, and who nearly destroyed a Spanish expedition that had conquered its way across much of the southeast. And the battle site itself? Still unfound. Archaeologists call it the predominant historical mystery of the Deep South. Dr. Ashley Dumas of the University of West Alabama has been leading the search. Her team has identified Tuscaloosa's territorial province of Mobile in Marengo County, documenting 141 distinct farmsteads from the mid-16th century. They've found 52 confirmed pieces of Spanish-made metal, horseshoe remnants, iron chisels, artifacts that prove Spanish presence in exactly the area the chronicles describe. But the actual battlefield, the fortified town where thousands died in a single day, remains hidden. Sarah Parcak's Global Explorer project has begun using satellite imagery to search for the site. Ground-penetrating radar surveys continue. The evidence is there. Somewhere in West Alabama, beneath farmland or forest, lies the archaeological proof of one of the bloodiest battles in North American history. And at its center, the story of a 7-foot chief who refused to submit. But here's where Tuscaloosa's story connects to everything I've been documenting about earthwork complexes and the people who built them. Because Tuscaloosa didn't emerge from nowhere as an isolated anomaly. He ruled territory, organized territory, commanded multiple towns across a region that had been developed and built by someone before he inherited authority over it. And 13 miles south of modern Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which is named after this chief, sits Moundville Archaeological Park with 29 massive flat-topped earthen mounds covering 326 acres of preserved Mississippian culture site.
Now, this is some insight I want to give y'all too about the copper-colored large Negroidal people, the IHUANS, who Tuscaloosa and his people were obviously part of in Alabama, right? Mind you, Owaspy say in that region, the largest is part of the region where the largest people in the Americas come from, and genetically and by population, it's still in that place. Anyways, I want to be clear that the IHUAN copper-colored people didn't use and are not the mound builders. They didn't use the mound like the mound builders did. By the time the IHUAN stocks started using the mounds, the mound builder stock, that it was no longer there, and the mounds as we know them were not in use. They started being used for a different reason, and these large copper-colored people, the American Indians, started burying their ancestors in these places that they knew were high spiritual places. They started using them for interments or sepulchres or tombs to bury their high-rated people in thousands and thousands of years later, after the mounds had been long out of use. So even our large copper-colored Negroidal people didn't build none of the mounds. They built the megalithic structures, the like the formed wood types. Brick types. You dig what I'm saying? The large types that where it looks like the rock is melded together, and they using these cyclopean style rocks to and stone to make their temples, like IHUANS, places like that. You dig what I'm saying? They built those structures, right? They're thousands and thousands of years old. Some of them up 24,000 years old. You dig what I'm talking about? And they were contemporaries with the mound builders. But by the time the mound builders started, petering out and becoming extinct on the face of the planet, the IHUAN was taking over these old massive complexes and city structures and repurposing them, right? They were finding them, just like the Inca found them, just like the Mayans found them, right? No different. You dig what I'm talking about? They didn't build none of the megalithic structures, right? They built in a smaller, less refined style, you know, much more. It was different, you know what I mean? It wasn't the megalithic style. So you got to understand that by this time, 1540s, you dig what I'm saying? These giant American Indians, right, have repurposed the mounds, right? They are descent of mound builder culture. They descent of that, but they are not the actual builders of the mounds. They are the builders of the temples. Different people. You see what I'm saying? The temple builder, the great megalithic temple builder, Teotihuacan, mind you, in the names of all these megalithic builders is Ahua. The people literally put their names on there. So, Teotihuacan, Saxe Ahuaman. It goes on and on and on. You dig what I'm saying? So I just want y'all to know that modern science don't know that these are different people. And just because they use the mounds, right, they didn't see what a lot of people don't know. A mound ain't to be lived on. A mound is an entrance. A mound is an entrance. Right? That's how you enter the greatest of the great cities. Right? It's not the greatest of the great cities. The greatest of the great cities is under the mounds. Uh-oh. What you talking about, Cosmo? You way above the head. Don't go there today.
This is one of the largest and most sophisticated pre-Columbian settlements in North America. And this was the cultural world that Tuscaloosa inherited when he became paramount chief. This was the civilization that built permanent structures, that organized labor for massive construction projects requiring thousands of workers, that created urban planning sophisticated enough to require mathematical and engineering knowledge we're supposed to believe didn't exist in pre-Columbian North America. Moundville itself was largely abandoned by Tuscaloosa's time, around 1540. The peak population lived there between 1200 and 1400 AD. But the mounds remained, the infrastructure remained, and the descendants of whoever built...
Only a WASP give you a reason as in why this structure failed, right, in between 1050 and 1250 BC. I mean AD, excuse me. Huh? Did y'all know that in the Americas, starting in about 1050, right, a comet heralded in some of the worst nebula and agile on the planet, right, causing the worst droughts to ever hit America. I mean, it literally fried it, right, creating even what we call Death Valley at this time. It wiped out Middle America. You dig what I'm saying? Them cultures just got fried. You dig what I'm talking about? They migrated or they died. Just is what it is. You know what I mean? They migrated or they died. They got fried. On this side of the planet, you had the worst droughts, heat, fires, everything, right? The land was literally scorching. And listen, this went on for hundreds of years. How do you think Terra Preta in South America was created? Huh? Terra Preta had to come from prior living material that was burned. Well, you could create 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 feet of Terra Preta if you burn grassland that was prior to that, farmland. Uh-oh, Cosmo. You saying the whole South America that's now jungle, just over 600 years ago, right? just over 600 years ago was grassland, but 200 years before that, it was farmland. Yep. You see the major switches in the topography. You dig what I'm saying? How does it do that? We know from 600 years ago where the Amazon forest was flat prairie land. How do you grow a forest there then? Just 600 years ago. Right? That Terra Preta only started being made in between 1050 AD and 1450 AD. This is why when DeSoto get there, this is why when Pizarro get there, he deal with Montezuma and all them. You dig what I'm saying? All the Spanish get there. The people tell them they're coming. They are only hush. They're only a little bit. It's okay. They are only a couple or 100 years or so from a great cataclysm. This is why. Hush. I see him. Hush. I see him. Okay. I thank you. Thank you for alerting me, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you. And this is why Montezuma tells him they're only about 120 years in 1520 from a great cataclysm that destroyed the place where his people migrated to. His people migrated there in the 1300s after a great cataclysm. Huh? That's what Montezuma tells him. I'm telling you, between 1050 and 1450 are documented. Some of the worst droughts and fires and all that stuff in the Americas, creating what we know as the deserts, finishing them off. And in 1450, to counterbalance what the hot that was going on in the Americas, Europe and Asia and in the eastern continents and all that went into a mini ice age in 1450. That's why they're running to the west. They can't feed themselves. Same reason they running to the west today. They can't feed themselves. Some things change. But a lot of things stay the same. Let's keep cooking.
Moundville was still in the region. Tuscaloosa ruled over territory that included these massive earthworks. And here's what we know about the builders of Moundville from archaeological excavation. When mounds at Moundville have been opened, when burial chambers have been documented, skeletal remains show a population with significant height variation. Some burials show individuals of
that's why I cleared that up. I want you to know the mound builders never buried themselves in mounds. Only their very large copper-colored nigger children did. Thousands of years later, they repurposed them. Because we had known all the time this is a holy place. They would have still had the stories of the Oeklopan, or the people from another land, the Mah and Yah, the people from the sky and the people from the earth, the people of the spirit and the flesh, the Mah and Yah. They would have had them stories. Mind you, Mayans, right, and Mahya are not the same people. One are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years before the other. One had been extinct 1,000 or plus years before even the earliest Mayans even step upon the scene. And plus, Mayan ain't the people name. That's the time that archaeologists give to a time, right? And anybody in this time that's from this region is Mayan. It's a broad term. It's like black, right? It's just a racial classification applied to people that denotes a time period, right? But look at this little nigga compared to the niggas that's around him. Listen, I'm telling you, these bones been found. Right? I'm just telling you, these people that's found ain't the actual mound builders. They're the people who come there thousands of years later, right? And repurpose it. Right? That's what I wanted to clear up.
Normal height for the region and period. But some burials, particularly those in prominent positions in central locations in chambers that suggest high status, show individuals of exceptional size. I'm not going to claim every person at Moundville was a giant. The evidence doesn't support that, but the evidence does support that leadership positions, high status burials, prominently placed remains frequently show unusual height. And that pattern, that association between authority and exceptional physical stature, that's exactly what we see with Tuscaloosa. 7 feet tall, paramount chief, commanded multiple towns, organized military resistance, and ruled over territory that included some of the most sophisticated pre-Columbian earthworks in North America. The modern narrative tends to minimize Tuscaloosa's height in ways that are technically accurate but obscure what the original sources actually documented. You'll see him described as very tall, or unusually tall, or a large man in contemporary history.
That is an interesting picture. That is an interesting picture, man. I'm telling you, they know that these people exist. But what we gotta get and understand is, don't matter if they 2 feet tall or if they 10 feet tall, they're all men. Ain't nothing mystical, magical. This is not a Nephilim, son of the gods. This is the lie that these tall niggas was telling you to do, stupid motherfuckers, just because they were strong. We are the sons of gods and titans. Praise me, nigga. Yeah, don't fall for that again. Right? The time of man worship and God worship and all that, that's over with. Huh? Man gonna figure out what Yeshua and them was talking about when he was talking about the things that I do, you can do, and even better. Well, how is that? If you either God or the Son of God, well, wait a minute, Cosmon, you're on to something there. God said, or Jehovah said, the things I do, you can do it even better. Well, how is that? If you are at the least the Son of God, or is the physical representation of God himself, does that mean I am the physical representation of a God also? Uh-oh. The reason they don't want to admit that is because that's going to admit that Owaspy is correct. Uh-oh. See, they twisted around the prophet's words, huh? To quail down some niggas who was fighting. Shout out to the Messianic Hebrews and them Algonquin groups that and Iroquois groups that wasn't having it. Had I been there, I'd have died with them too. Wrong or right, whatever. You wasn't gonna be impressing that foolishness upon our people. Have naked prophets all in the temple. You crazy? Nah. I'd have died right with them too.
Historical accounts and educational materials. Those descriptions are true as far as they go,
Look what Prince said. Hold on 1 second, y'all. All right, my bad. But I just wanted to say this is a real interesting picture. You dig what I'm saying? But they gonna end up figuring it out, Prince. Know ye that you are gods and Nirvanian goddesses. Gang. Yes, indeed, man. You dig what I'm talking about? They've always conflated the prophet's words and twisted it around and to use the light of the creator for certain selfish ways. You dig what I'm talking about? Selfish religious ways. You dig what I'm saying? So, you know, it is what it is. But you know, we breaking that spell. Right, shedding some light into them dark regions, and much of that starts with you. So to get back to your heritage, all right, your culture, your ethnicity, your spiritual practices, in fact, right, to know that you were peaceful when it was time to be peaceful, right? For the most part, you were 90% of the time. But you had some ancestors too that was kicking ass, taking names, wasn't playing with nobody. You are the best of both worlds. That's what Cosmon mean. This is why Cosmon mean balance, right? Because what's happening in this time is that we're balancing. We're learning to balance high spirituality along with high physicality. Huh? This is why it's important to read Owaspi today, to learn who you are and to see how you fit in the puzzle, because it's just because you a piece don't mean you ain't part of the whole puzzle. They need you to complete the puzzle. Just so happened though, you got an extra little soul seasoning. Huh? You one of them stocks. They got that extra little that little old bay on there. You dig what I'm talking about? You got a little extra paprika and cayenne up in there. You dig what I'm saying? Just so happens. But you come from it because you earned it. Right? They done twisted around the prophet's words, man. The prophet, the false gods. But all that's over with. We learning who he is.
But they carefully avoid the specific measurements that the Spanish chronicles recorded. They avoid mentioning that he was described as so tall he seemed like a giant, that he was 1.5 feet taller than the Spanish soldiers, that no normal horse could carry him because of his size and weight. That's not just very tall in the sense of someone who's 6 feet 2 inches, in a population where average height is 5'8". That's 7 feet tall, which places him in exactly the same physical range as the skeletal remains I've documented from burial mounds in Ohio, from stone chambers in Illinois, from earthwork complexes in Missouri. The giants whose bones were systematically collected by the Smithsonian and subsequently disappeared from accessible collections. But Tuscaloosa is different. Tuscaloosa has documentation. 4 independent Spanish sources, chronicles written within years of the encounter, no possibility of measurement error, no archaeological misinterpretation, no post-mortem distortion to blame, just eyewitnesses describing what they saw, a 7-foot chief who nearly destroyed a Spanish expedition. And the Spanish had no reason to exaggerate. If anything, admitting they were nearly defeated by native forces was embarrassing. Admitting the Battle of Mobila cost them their supplies and horses, that it effectively ended any hope of conquest or successful colonization, that was a failure they had to explain to their superiors. Exaggerating Tuscaloosa's physical size doesn't make that failure less embarrassing. If anything, it makes them look worse, losing to someone they portray as extraordinary. The documentation stands. Tuscaloosa was 7 feet tall. He ruled over territory that included Moundville, and he organized military resistance that resulted in one of the deadliest battles in North American history. Modern Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the city named after this chief, is currently planning a 22-foot bronze statue of Chief Tuscaloosa. 22 feet, not 7 feet, the approximate actual height. 22 feet, monumental scale, heroic representation, which is appropriate for commemorating a historical figure of significance. But I find it interesting that the statue will be 3 times his actual size, while the historical narrative tends to minimize how large he actually was. The Black Warrior River, which flows past Moundville and through modern Tuscaloosa, is also named after him, and the Choctaw Nation considers Tuscaloosa their oldest recorded ancestor, a direct cultural connection spanning nearly 500 years from the...
Shout out to the Choctaw. Shout out to Chief Warhorse and all the Choctaw folks down there. My second great grandma is Biloxi. You dig what I'm talking about? My great grandfather Carter Freeman is Choctaw from Louisiana. Right? This how he got to Ohio was that his people sold the land, but they got head rights in Ohio, right? So, but when they sold the land, they did a deal to say that when they hired on to the people who was gonna build the levees, they had to get the niggas in first, the Indians that was there in the wards. So they bought the land from the Indians down there and moved a lot of them people out of them places and built up the levees. They built up the levees, and that's how my grandfather and them came from Louisiana. You dig what I'm saying? Up to Toledo, Ohio. They was able to get a head right in a home because, in a sense, they sold their home, but for selling the home, the government also gave them like a stipend to get another home in another place, right? And that place just so happened to be for our family, Toledo, Ohio. Salute to my brother Gideon, man. Salute to that brother, man. Yeah, man. You dig what I'm talking about? I got people all through Louisiana still today. You dig what I'm talking about? You dig what I'm saying? And see, that's on my mother's, my grandmother's mother, my great grandmother's husband. That's Carter Freeman, straight from Louisiana. I know him. I met him. We've talked. He the one told me about my not Choctaw. He told me back then it was Choctaw. Yep. Not Choctaw. Shatta. And they was and this the crazy part. And that's my mother's side. Right? But on my mother's father's side, right? My second great grandfather was Choctaw, light skinned, the opposite of what Carter Freeman was. Carter Freeman was a blue black nigger. Now, my second great granddaddy on the Jones side was light bright. Light bright. That the talk was that he had some white man in him, but he didn't. He didn't. His mama was light red. You dig what I'm talking about? And so was his daddy. Bright niggas. Right? And even in his picture, he got the Choctaw what do you call those? The little blanket things with the signs and the symbols on them. You dig what I'm talking about? To let you know who you is, where you from, tribal affiliation, all that. That's right in the backdrop of his picture. Yeah. His wife, right, is she the one where I get my Muskogee so-called Creek roots from. You dig what I'm talking about? Straight out of that Alabama stock. That Algonquin stock. The large copper-colored Negroido stock. That IHUANS stock. She was chocolate black too. And her name was Rilla. She was the realest. You dig what I'm saying? But she would have been that Southern Indian, Alabama, all through there would have been Apalachicola. Also could have been, but what it comes out in the thing behind her, in the tapestry behind her, is Creek. Another Algonquin people. Right? Who, get created later, is a group that gets created much, much later. Right? And then there's another tribe that sprouts off it, you know what I mean? Because they had a confederation, like a North and South, a red stick, and a Southern type of Creek. And that part of them gets usurped into the 5 civilized tribes. You dig what I'm saying? And become what the Creek today. A lot of them people never move east of the Mississippi. They stay and get reclassified as Negroes, coloreds, and blacks. Yeah, we need to build one day, Gideon, on his historical Aboriginal indigenous history of the America and Louisiana. Cause y'all got a culture that comes with a lot of addition later in time. Like new The addition is new. You dig what I'm talking about? So you know what I mean. It'll make it seem like it's something else, but when in fact, man, listen, man, them real Mardi Gras Indians down there, they look just like me and Gideon, huh? All the real Indians down there look like Indians, and whether they keep talking about they Zulu this, which means something different in Choctaw, means something different in Muskogean languages, means something different in Algonquin-based languages, means something different in Siouan languages, Caribbean languages, right? Zulu don't just come from one place. And when you find out that the true Zulus were pale-faced Europeans who were painting themselves to blackfacing themselves to fit in with the Mardi Gras Indians, huh? You start to take a look at that whole little Zulu stuff a little different, and then you see that the only real African in the continent of Africa today that is calling himself African and speaks the African language are also pale-faced Europeans also. So who the real Zulu? I'm just saying it's not as cookie cutter and dry as we thought it was when we go back in history and actually look.
Documented 7-foot chief who faced DeSoto to the modern tribal nation that preserves his memory. They maintain a statue of Chief Tuscaloosa at the Choctaw Cultural Center in Durant, Oklahoma. They know who he was, they know what he did, and they know he was a giant. 7 feet is extraordinary. It's exceptional. It places Tuscaloosa.
I'm just saying. I could be tripping, right? But let's run this back just a little bit.
Oklahoma. They know who he was. They know.
That nose, that nose ain't giving Siberian. Where is the epicanthic fold? This is supposedly a description or a depiction of Tuscaloosa, purportedly. What I'm saying is, boy, that nose look extra niggery. that nose look niggery. he look like he's sniffing up all the good air. You dig what I'm talking about? Listen, that big wide mouth, big liver lip. Listen, this is not giving Mongoloidal Siberian to me. Huh? For a minute, remember, this is a man in Alabama in 1540. Copper color, brown, very large. All I'm just showing you is today that through migration, through colonization, right? The people that they're claiming to be the Aboriginal is not historically, right? The people that historically that are the Aboriginals have been misnomered, reclassified today as blacks, coloreds, Negroes, and African Americans. Even being misnomered as FBA when you are indigenous. In fact, aboriginal, descent from the original stock. Which, that's what aboriginal means. I'm just saying that nose is given.
What he did, and they know he was a giant. 7 feet is extraordinary. It's exceptional. It places Tuscaloosa in the same physical range as the giants documented in burial mounds across the eastern United States. Giants whose existence is now dismissed as measurement error or exaggeration or myth. But Tuscaloosa wasn't mythology. He was documented by multiple independent sources. He was alive, active, political, military, and 7 feet tall. The pattern I keep finding is that when giants are documented archaeologically in burial mounds as skeletal remains, those discoveries get minimized, explained away, collected, and lost. But when a giant is documented historically while alive, engaging in politics and warfare, that documentation is harder to dismiss, harder to reinterpret. The sources exist, they're published, they're accessible, and they say what they say. Tuscaloosa was 7 feet tall. The Spanish documented it. 4 independent sources confirmed it. His physical size prevented him from riding a normal horse. And he ruled over territory that included Moundville, one of the most sophisticated pre-Columbian sites in North America. That's not myth. That's not legend. That's documented history. And it supports exactly what the archaeological evidence shows, that pre-Columbian North America included populations of exceptional height, that those populations were associated with sophisticated earthwork construction, that they held leadership positions, and that their existence has been systematically minimized in modern historical narratives. Tuscaloosa proves it, because Tuscaloosa can't be dismissed. The chronicles exist. The sources are independent. The documentation is clear. A 7-foot Native American chief commanded thousands of warriors, organized military resistance against Spanish colonization, and nearly succeeded. His body was never found, but his story, his height, his authority, all of that was documented. And it remains documented. 4 Spanish chronicles, all saying the same thing. Tuscaloosa was a giant. Thanks for watching. And if you found this interesting, well, there are...
Well, I think that's dope, man. Shout out to them folks. You dig what I'm saying? You know, for even bringing out the information, taking the time to actually look through the chronicles, which, you know, many of the Aboriginals have been doing for over a decade. You dig what I'm saying? Remember, I've always known I was standing on the shoulders of giants. But now we know it's literal. Salute to all them brothers that have been putting in that pain. You dig what I'm talking about? Awakening the people. You dig what I'm talking about? But now it's time to align them back to the Great Spirit. What made your people great? Why they call it America, or the land of the Great Spirit, or they call it the land of the big soul. It's actually the land of the Great Spirit, America. It ain't named after a European. It's not. He named himself Amerigo. Right? The ka is the go. Same thing means land. Right? So, you dig what I'm saying? This is why it's important to make these connections, because it wakes up genetic memory. That's what your DNA is. Owaspi explains it as ESPA, Vortexian record, or DNA, right? How it's read, you know? So, with that being said, I ain't gonna be the dead horse, man. We up out of here, man. You know what I need you to do, man? Cosmon. Let me see. Let me get us out of here real quick. Let me see what I got on deck. What we can play real quick. Oh, let's play this. Let's play this new SNRs by Bronze, man. This new SNRs by Bronze Yogi, real quick, man. This joint fire too. Breaking down that old waspy. You dig what I'm talking about? Breaking down that old waspy, man. Putting that thing. Shout out to the SNRs, man. Shout out to Bronze Yogi, man. Gang, gang. It's definitely in this thing. Peace to the gods and Nirvanian goddesses. Salute to the big sister, Shasivi, Antithotis, the Antithoter. You dig what I'm talking about? The archangel over the Ark of Cosmon, man, in this 177th year, man, heading into the 178th year of the Cosmon era, man. Hey, this year is gonna be nuts. I know y'all been feeling that that energy that's been popping off since the planetary alignment, blood moon, and the lunar eclipse. Boy, count 5.5 years, see where you gonna be at. I bet it's 30, 31. Ugh. It ain't guesswork, y'all. I'm not guessing. All right? Shout out to Bronze, yo. Shout out to the SNRs, man. Shout out to Kev Capone also. And shout out to the undergrads. Man, this is fire. You dig what I'm saying? Let's keep cooking, man. That Vortexian heat, man. Love, light, balance, man. Y'all know what I need y'all to do. Right? And that's breathe in. And let that light in. Because I'm Cosmon. And I'm out.
Jehovah said, by virtue of my presence, I created the seen and unseen worlds. And I commanded man to name them. And man called the seen worlds corpora, and the unseen worlds is. And the inhabitants of corpora man called corporeans. But the inhabitants of this, he sometimes called his sons and sometimes spirits, and sometimes spirits, and sometimes spirits, and sometimes spirit, and sometimes angels. And Creator said, I created the earth and fashioned it and placed it in the firmament. And by my presence brought man forth a living being. I gave him a corporeal body so that he could learn corporeal things. And I made death so that he could rise in the firmament and inherit my Etherian worlds. The Spirit gave dominion over corpora, with his eye filled all place in the firmament. But corpora I made into earths, moons, stars, and suns. Beyond number I made them, and I caused them to float in the places I allotted to them. As I divided into two parts, and I commanded man to name them, and he called one Etheria, and the other atmosphere. These are the three kinds of worlds I created. But I gave different densities to atmosphere worlds, and different densities to the Etherian worlds. For the substance of my Etherian worlds, I created Eth, the most refined, 50 out of ETH I made them. And I made ETH the subtlest of all created things, and gave it power and place. Not only by itself, but also power to penetrate and exist within all things, even within the corporeal worlds. And to ETH I gave dominion over both atmosphere and corporal.
Shout out to Cosmon Cow. Cosmon Cow, boy, I'm going to tell you something. He is a problem. He is a problem when it comes to these Hebrew Israelites. Y'all better stop playing. He is a problem. Cosmon Cow is a problem. Creator gang gang.
Yeah, the gang coming. Creator gang coming. Turning up the light and watching boys start running. Let me tell you something. We ain't out here doing nothing. I can tell you scared, boy. Niggas stop fronting. It was all in the plan.
Creator gang is crazy. Boy, y'all better pay attention.
We fight as a single, impenetrable unit. That is the source of our strength.
Jehovah, symmetry sung, heard his word, and the world begun. Motion one, devotion sprung, Jehovah reigns for the chosen, the only one. The book of Jehovah, symmetry sung, heard his word, and the world begun. Motion one, devotion sprung, Jehovah reigns for the chosen, the only one.
Before the earth took shape, new sound of sight, the creator sliced the time in the day and night. He breathed through void till the ether stirred, then sent angels and prophets to teach his word. Motion,
notion, devotion, align, encoded design in the spine of time. Wind wrote signs on the breath of the prime, S intertwined with the flesh of the line.
Quicken the killer, conceiver entwined, dual divine, the ether confined. Two entities birthed, corpor and S, life compressed in the vortex nest. Spirit in the mist, physics resist, matter persist in Jehovah's fist. Dust kiss flame, play became twist. Anatomy gift from the infinite list. Male and female named through air, EOE. That sacred blare, not beast, not star. Not anywhere but the whisper of wind as a builder's prayer. Vortex speak, the sequence hum, the life resume. From void to bloom, to eat the groom, creation's womb. Every tune in the flames plume, a living rune. If your soul need food, here's what you consume.
The book of Jehovah, symmetry sung, heard his word and the world begun. Motion one, devotion sprung, Jehovah reigns for the chosen, the only one. The book of Jehovah, symmetry sung, heard his word and the world begun. Motion one, devotion sprung, Jehovah reigns for the chosen, the only one.
Three states of worlds I made, corporeal terrain, an atmosphere and chain to Etherian planes. Ether the pure, obscure domain, the ghost of light, free the soul from shame. Atmosphere, field and flow, AGA, nebula glow. Currents collide where the comets go. Gravity bend with the vortices, so sound became law. Law gave sight, and every soul aligned in Jehovah's light. His love gave reason and the heart retune. If your body need rest, here's the text to consume.
The book of Jehovah, symmetry sung, heard his word and the world begun. Motion one, devotion sprung, Jehovah reigns for the chosen, the only one.
The book of Jehovah, symmetry sung. Heard his word and the world begun. Motion one, devotion sprung. Jehovah reigns for the chosen, the only one. Before the clay inhaled the spark, the plan was grand. See moose spun pulse through the dust of man. Ether expand to where the blueprint ran. Spirit tied to flesh by Jehovah's hand. Angels descended, intelligent, warm. Walk with Azu where the light was born. Heaven breathed with a mortal form. Lord met love and the veil was torn. The seed took root in the coil's perfume. Sense evolved under the sun and the moon. Time broke the sleep of a deep commune. And now man learns pattern from teeth to spoon. From breath to balance, the most high drop clues. From speech and sequence, the spirit world moved. From page to prophecy through mahogany hues. If your mind need peace, here's the key to consume. The book of Jehovah, symmetry sung. Heard his word and the world begun. Motion one, devotion sprung. Jehovah reigns for the chosen, the only one. The book of Jehovah.